welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at how I sculpted and installed this rockwork in this water box tank. So rockwork is a floating scape. It is not touching any grass at all. By taking a closer look, you could tell how I accomplished this feat. It's not anything hard, but stay tuned so you can see step by step on how I actually did this.
Starting off, the best thing for me to do is to measure the tank to see what height I need to work with. I know I'm not going to take over the whole tank with the rock work, so I don't need to measure the depth nor the length. All I'm really concerned about here is the height, which, even though I measured it, I should have measured twice, count once, which you'll see later in the video. Then we move on to the tools. We have our drill bits, these acrylic rods, which I actually found at Hobby Lobby. They are food grade, so if they're food grade, I believe then they should be good for the tank, alongside with some super glue. Super glue I like to use is from the dollar store. It's a gel type. It's pretty inexpensive, smaller tubes. And last but not least, we have the rocks that we will be using. Sitting outside right under the truck, I have this cardboard box ready. The reason why I have this cardboard box is to pretty much map out the size of the tank. Again, I'm not worried about length or width in this case. All I'm worried about is the height. So knowing the height that I just measured, I want to go and just put a mark on this piece of cardboard so I know how high I could go. Again, I should have measured twice, cut once, because even though I have this dimension right there, I still made a mistake. This piece of rock that you're seeing there is what will be buried in the sand bed. And I have this more aerated piece that I'm going to be using to start the floating aspect of the rock work. So best thing you want to do is kind of map out where your rocks are going to be going. It's also one of the hardest parts about doing this is after you found the best way to set it up, to remember how it goes, because once you are moving the rock work, you might have to take it down to put it into the tank, and then just remembering how it went could be the hardest part of your day. So one, figuring out where we'd like to see this fit. Then once we have that, we are on our way. With the acrylic rods, the best way to figure out what drill bit you'll need is to use a caliper or just anything that you could really get a precise measurement on. But mine ran out of batteries, so I did it the old school way. I took the rod and just rested over the different size drill bits to see which one would give me a snug enough fit where the rod would be able to go through the hole and I could put a little bit of glue, but not too much where it's just rattling around. Once I have what I believe is the right size, we're going to go ahead and switch that bit out, and that's going to be the one we'll go with. While setting up the drill, I remember that I also have a thicker piece of acrylic, which I was going to use as the center. So instead of drilling the holes for the smaller support pieces, I decided to switch the drill bit to the larger bit that I have that will fit this piece of acrylic, so I could have it in the center and have most of the weight being on that. Right here is a very simple process. You're just going to find where you want to set that acrylic rod and just drill that hole out. The drill bit that I'm using is slightly smaller than the piece of acrylic, so I am taking my time to just make the hole a little bit bigger than what the bit is so that the acrylic rod could fit in there. And after each drill pass, I take the acrylic rod and just test it, make sure that it's not too big. It's not that we could add the rock back. Yes, you could add some glue and the dust back in there, but you want to get it as close to the size of the acrylic rod to minimize the amount of work that you'd have to do after if the hole is too big. Once I have the placement for the rod and the hole drilled to the size I need, now I'm going to start to look around the rock work to figure out other crevices or spots where I could now put the smaller rods to use to support this floating piece. You might be wondering why I have just this small piece floated. It's easier to start with the smaller piece floated and then you could add the rock on top of it. Just make sure that the overall weight that you're going to be putting on it is going to be less than what the rods can hold. But it's much easier to just hold a half-pound piece of rock and place that rather than a 6 to 10-pound piece of rock and try to find the perfect spot for it. Stay tuned and watch till the end to see the mistake that I made and the overall outcome. Once I feel like it is mounted pretty close to where I'd want, then I would go ahead and find an additional support for this mounting piece. 2 piece of really thin acrylic won't really hold it up. Even with that extra thick piece in the middle, you still want to have a little bit more support around, especially add in additional weight on top. I also drill through the rock at some point, which in this case won't harm it because it's going straight into the sand bed. After setting the rock on top and seeing that it does hold up, now we are going to move to actually securing the acrylic rods to the rock work. I like to use the gel super glue that you get from the dollar store. Reason why I like to use it is, one, it's gel. It's not going to be running all over. You could put it precisely where you're going to need the glue. And it also cures faster with water. So by setting the glue exactly where I would need it and then just add in some water onto it, whether it's with a spray bottle or with my hands, it helps to set the rock exactly where you need it. As you could see, I am just dousing some water onto it. Literally a bowl with water, just dip your hand in there and splash it onto the rock. That's enough to start the curing process on it. I want to use as much glue as I can, get it all the way into all the holes, and add more water. I like to let the rock work sit overnight to help cure. It's still not going to be 100% ready for the tank. I still want to give it a couple more hours. I actually let it sit for an additional day. After letting it sit for an additional 2 days, I went ahead and put the first part of the rockwork into the water by making a small hole where I wanted the base rock to sit closer to the glass, and then just moving the sand around it. And then here we come with the large piece of rock. You want to be careful that it doesn't hit the glass. So I lift it really high, put it over the tank and onto it, while getting a view from up front of where I'd like for it to sit. Remember what I said in the beginning. I should measure twice, cut once. The issue I ran into right here is the rock was sitting outside of the water. So even though I measured 10 inches for height, I did not consider how thick this second piece of rock was. So after not really liking how it sat, I took it out, did not film this, and I put a hammer to that piece of rock, got it into many smaller pieces, and then did the same process. Super glue and acrylic rods until I could have a more flat piece of rock, in which I then replaced. As you can see, it was sitting super high. But after everything, I was able to get the look that I was going for. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep reefing.